I want to welcome everybody to Walking Between Shadows. This is going to be a unique episode for us.
Yes, it is.
And as I remember it, the way this episode started and what kicked us off on this was we were talking about doing an episode about the haunts around Gibson County.
Yes.
And um, I mentioned a ghost at Oakview Cemetery
Yes.
in Trenton,
Yes.
Miss Hess.
Yes. Miss Peggy, Miss Margaret.
Yeah, Margaret Hess.
Yes.
Very storied history.
Yes.
And it led us to a subject about an event that is similar to what we do here on Walking Between Shadows.
Yes, it is.
Is we talk about cases and try to keep them in the public's eye so that people that may know something will do something. And this particular case happened in 1909,
1908.
1908.
Yes.
Right. So 1908, and it's a murder case.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
So in starting this and looking a little bit deeper, one of the few things that I got from my great grandmother's estate was her copy of this book, Gibson County Past and Present, from Culp and Ross and the Gibson County Historical Society. Yeah. And so it's interesting. It was gifted to her, and in it's a copy of an anniversary celebration at Eldad Baptist Church. But anyway, so we're talking about our hometown, Trenton, Tennessee.
Yeah.
And so we started looking in this book, and we had read and heard stories of all of this that really kind of listed some weird places that you didn't know of, hadn't heard of, and some of them I haven't heard of.
No. No, I haven't. I haven't heard of it, and I grew up there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and to give you an example, Neboville, that's still known as Nebo over by Yorkville
Okay.
or Yorkville.
Yorkville.
Hooten. Hooten. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Nightville. I had never heard of that.
Ever.
Now, west of Trenton going towards Dyersburg was a community called Leck. And that was before you got to Eaton.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it looks like it would have been in the vicinity of maybe Central or between Central and the Gumwoods, maybe.
Maybe.
Okay. So it just started getting really neat for us to hear these names and talk about, where they were. And,
Yeah.
I was born into a family that was part of the early history of Gibson County.
Right.
So my mom's side of the family, Holmes, her
Mm-hmm.
paternal side of the family, were business owners, prominent business owners back during this time period we're going to talk about. And, became part of the legal system
Mm-hmm.
because this definitely involves the legal system in Trenton.
Very much so.
Yeah. And so it just was interesting to me. Now, let me share the relationship of me and Frederick Culp.
Okay.
Okay.
And this is the historian, and everybody from, especially Trenton, remembers him.
Yeah.
From that's a certain age, anyway.
It's our age or older.
Yeah.
Definitely. Because he retired between you and me being
Yes.
at Peabody.
That's right.
But Frederick Culp was the uncle of my mom's stepdad. So my grandfather, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Because my grandmother and this man, Jack Reagan, got married before I was born.
Mm-hmm.
So he's all I knew as my grandmother's husband.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That's right.
All right. So his mom and Frederick Culp were brother and sister.
Mm-hmm.
And they grew up at Edison. I think my grandfather actually spent some time in Milan. I don't know. I have to check on that. But anyway, so Frederick Culp was the county historian.
Yes.
And I remember as a little kid, I got to tell on him, he's no longer with us, but it's not going to be disrespectful.
No. Oh.
But I can remember as a little kid, we would go out to Granny King's house because she was king at that time.
Mhm.
And Granny King loved to talk.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter if anybody was there to listen or not. She talked to her flowers. She talked to the chairs at her table. She talked to the refrigerator, the
I do.
stove.
I do as well.
Yeah, that was my great grandmother. And if I remember correctly, they called her Tiny.
Uh-huh.
And she never was very big. I mean, she's a little bitty, skinny, wiry woman that just was on 100% go everywhere, every time, all the time. Now, this was my grandfather Jack's mother. So we go out there to stay with her, and once in a while, she would allow us to go over right next door to visit Uncle Frederick.
Uh-huh.
And Uncle Frederick was an eternal bachelor, okay? But his house was this old kind of farmstead home, 2 stories. Um, it was one of those houses that had the kitchen off the back,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm. Yes, I do.
and it was filled from front to back, left to right, in every room you could go into with stuff. And I'm talking about the cannonballs from the war.
Well, you never know. You might need
You might need them, especially out there in Frog Jump or Edison, whatever you want to call it, that community.
that.
But it was every room, and I remember the room he was in most of the time, other than his bedroom, was the living room, and he had this single recliner sitting in the middle of the floor, and it was facing a TV. And that room, again, was front to back, left to right, just covered in stuff. Now, most of that in that room was whatever he was studying on at that time. And I would
Mhm.
imagine he did a lot of his prep work for teaching school at Peabody High School in
Mhm.
that room.
Mhm.
I I remember him driving, but I do not remember what, you know. And he always he ate and slept and lived teaching kids history and being a conservator of Gibson County's history in Trenton.
And you can imagine all those things that he collected from history all have their imprints,
Hmm.
all have their own stories to tell,
Yeah.
and what those items carry. Yeah.
So after he passed away, I understand that most of what was in his house in that category was given to the Gibson County Museum. So
Mm.
if ever you're in Trenton and want to go see something interesting, go to the Gibson County Museum because it's very interesting what this county came from.
You know, it's very interesting. I mean, I grew up there, but I mean, my mother was from, you know, up north. We're from Pennsylvania.
Hmm.
So I just didn't learn that much about, you
Where you were
know,
born.
right. I just didn't learn that much
Well,
about,
where you were born was a big part of national history. I mean, you were born in the area of Gettysburg.
right. But I know about Gettysburg, but no, I did not know much about, you know, Gibson County or Trenton, even though
Hmm.
I did, you know, grow up there. But I was busy being a kid and having kids and, you know,
Yeah.
doing my thing.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So this has been this has been interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah, it has.
So we're going to talk about a couple of men who were very instrumental in the early days of Gibson County and the early days of Trenton. And Taryn, you've got some pretty unique details about them, but I'll introduce them. The first person we're going to talk about is Colonel R.Z. Taylor.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, now R.Z. Taylor was an attorney,
Mhm.
and this case that we're talking about involves him and another attorney from Trenton. a
Yeah.
gentleman by the name of Captain Quentin Rankin.
Yes.
Okay. So Quentin Rankin and R.Z. Taylor, both of them are buried at Oakland Cemetery in Trenton.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, this particular event uh, was unique to these two. And I don't, none of us obviously know the whole story.
Right.
Okay. But I want to add that anybody that's watching this and sees this, if you know, say something,
Please.
leave a comment, because we have become super fascinated with this story. And believe me, these gentlemen's wives are something special as well.
Very much so.
But essentially, they were involved in managing the West Tennessee Land Company,
Mm-hmm.
and or Quentin Rankin was,
Right.
right. Um, what they were doing was, these two were down in Obion County. Lake County wasn't a thing then, but they were at Reelfoot Lake,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And one wound up dead.
Yes.
Both were kidnapped, but one wound up dead.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, why don't you start with R.Z. Taylor? And
R.Z. Taylor was born in Madison County in 1846. So that's how far back we're going.
oh, look, I'm sorry. I hate to interrupt you about this, but I
Uh-huh.
just got through talking about my great grandmother by marriage,
Uh-huh.
Eileen King,
Uh-huh.
and her brother, Frederick Colt.
Right.
Now, what reminded me of this is you said R.Z. Taylor was born in Madison County.
Yes.
Okay. My great grandmother on my mother's side, paternally,
Mm-hmm.
was raised in South Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
And Jack's grandmother, which would have been my great grandmother's mom,
Uh-huh.
when she passed away in the 60s, she lived in a very historic period home on South Highland.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm talking about, this is after you've gone past the hospital and the college and Olman Arena or whatever that
Mm-hmm.
was, and you're going out the very tail end of Jackson. Those old houses that sat up on a hill way on down each side of the
Uh-huh.
road.
I know.
It
Yeah.
was right in there.
Okay.
Now, I obviously wasn't around when she passed away even, but my mom and her brother Steve were.
Okay.
And mother's told me how cool it was to go to her
Oh,
house.
I bet. Yeah.
And I don't know if they did it a lot, but it just reminded me how deep that I was connected to family members that are, here in this time period,
Uh-huh.
in
Yeah.
this area, Madison, Gibson County, and Trenton.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sorry, go ahead. R.Z. Taylor.
Yes, R.Z. Taylor, born in 1846 in Madison County. And a couple years later, after he was born in Madison County, his parents moved him to Trenton, to Gibson County, right outside to some farmland there.
Like on the south side of what was Trenton.
Right. And he was raised on a farm there. And after he got to the age where he was able to go to college, he did go to college at Andrew College, which was an all boys college, right?
In Trenton.
In Trenton, Tennessee.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay. Andrew College was on what is Old Peabody
Uh-huh.
on College.
Right. And when the Civil War began, he quit his college
Studies.
studies
Uh-huh.
and he became a quartermaster general in the Civil War.
Wow.
Yeah. In 1865, he went back and studied law
Hmm.
and became an attorney.
But we haven't heard where he finished that. Did he go back to Andrew College?
I think so.
Because it burned down back some time ago.
Okay.
Okay, so you think he went back to Andrew College and finished his law studies?
That's right.
Okay, go ahead.
So he's
Sorry.
that's fine. He's practicing law and he meets his wife. And I love this woman's name. This makes me happy to talk about this. So her
Yes.
name is America Clementine Meddy. That's what she was called. Ivy, which is I love that.
So her last name was Ivy.
Ivy. Yes.
Okay.
So he marries her and they have several children, boys and girls. Um, and he starts a law firm later on down the line called Taylor and Taylor Law Firm with his son, Hillsman Taylor.
Uh-huh.
who was also very well known.
Yeah, Hillsman was all right. So RZ's son Hillsman played football at Vanderbilt.
Mhm. Wow.
Um, very accomplished attorney
Mhm.
and businessman. He spent a lot of time in Memphis and St. Louis professionally, and then came back to Tennessee.
Right.
Now he had a son,
Mhm.
which would have been the grandson of R.Z. Taylor,
Right.
that became a Pulitzer Prize winning author.
So these people are amazing.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, now I haven't found out a whole lot about Miss Meddy, his wife,
Mhm.
except that she was an exceptional wife. Very much stood behind her husband, RZ, and was a good mother. You know, she kept it going. She kept the home fires burning
Yeah.
when he was out doing all these amazing things. He was very involved in getting the new courthouse um, rebuilt or built. I mean, there was something there
It was
before.
a yeah, they were transitioning from the very first courthouse that was built to the one we see today.
Right. So that he was very much involved in that. And in 1908, um, he was partnered up with his friend, that would have been Quentin Rankin.
Uh-huh.
And Quentin Rankin was born in 1869 in Wayne County.
Uh-huh.
So he also moved to Trenton and was an attorney. Um, he married, um, and this, let me get this right, Eliza McEwen Grizzard.
Mhm.
And they moved into the beautiful house called the Rosedale.
Alright, so Rosedale. We're
Yes.
gonna talk about homes a little bit too,
Hmm.
but Rosedale, where is Rosedale?
So Rosedale is located on College Street. I believe
Uh-huh.
that would be is that 408 College Street?
Yeah, that's South College, so you've left the courthouse going south,
Hmm.
you've passed City Hall, and you're approaching the Baptist church on your right. Um, this house would be sitting on the left in that area between what is now City Hall and Pecan Place
Hmm.
Mansion,
Yes,
which is across from the Methodist Church.
that's right.
Okay, so it's a B and B now,
Yes.
or we think it is. That
Hmm.
that was information a few years ago. It was actually the first registered B and B in Tennessee.
Right. That's right. I think that
Yeah,
began what in 2001 or
I think
four, something like that.
somewhere in the early 2000s. Yeah.
Okay. So Quentin Rankin also served in the Spanish American War with the Second Tennessee Volunteer Infantry. So, I mean, he was very well respected as well.
Uh huh.
But in 1908, he was working for West Tennessee Land. What was it called?
Just West Tennessee Land Company.
West Tennessee Land Company.
Yeah, I mean they did title work and stuff like that on deeds and whatnot
Hmm.
for land transactions.
Yes.
But having that job and that connection gave them unusually good access to knowing that land was going to be up for sale,
That's
or
right.
how to get maybe access to it early.
Right. So they had they
Yeah.
had a lot more options and a lot more,
Yeah.
knowledge about what was going on.
Well, and don't quote me on this again. I hope somebody like Brenda and Buddy Taylor are listening to this, or
Hmm.
can listen to it. But from what I understand, R.Z. Taylor, when he moved to Trenton with his mom and dad, they bought what is still owned by the Taylor family, Taylor Woods,
Right.
and that farm out there.
Right.
And so that means that that farm has been in the family nearly 200 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So I mean, in 1908, Quentin and his friend Robert Taylor both, served in the war and are well known and very well liked in the town of Trenton, living in their nice homes on College Street, one on 1008 College Street, which is where Robert Taylor and Miss Maddie lived.
Hmm.
And then you have, I believe it was 1899 when Quentin and his wife Eliza moved into their home, Rosedale, on 408 College Street.
So Rosedale,
Rosedale.
408 College. Now that's the house on the west side of College Street behind Joe Hammond's, right?
We're gonna put pictures of these beautiful homes.
Okay.
And I did see, that people still go. I don't know if they still do it today, but I know a few years back, around this time of year,
Mhm.
they would open these homes and
Right.
allow the public to come in and see them.
For historic tour homes, yeah.
Yes. So I don't know if they still do that or not, but
Yeah, and
very
there's
cool.
several homes in Trenton on the National Register of Historic Places.
Okay. Yeah. Very cool homes too.
Mhm.
And I've been in a couple,
Yeah.
and I know you have because your family owned um, the R.C. Taylor's home at one point.
Um, where did RZ live?
He lived at 1008 South College Street.
Alright, and what house was that?
That was the one that was close to, across from the church.
So that's the one by Joe and Linda Hammonds.
Yes,
Okay.
that was R.C. Taylor's. Rosedale was over there close to the, Presbyterian church, right?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Okay.
And so when you say my family owned, Hal Holmes and his wife bought that home in the '60s?
They owned it for 52 years.
So they bought it in the '40s.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Wow, that's just weird. I'm sorry, that is just weird to me.
Right. So, I mean, after so these both of these men were working for, as attorneys and in this land, West Tennessee Land Company. And, in 1811 and 1812, Reelfoot Lake,
Uh-huh.
the earthquake,
Yeah.
it really shook things up,
Yep.
that year.
Yeah. Literally and figuratively.
Right. And it made Reelfoot Lake open up, and it helped with fishing and a lot of resources in that area.
Well, yeah, it became so in 1811, 1812, when that earthquake happened, it backed the Mississippi River into it. That's how it got filled.
Mhm.
And it became a spot of commerce. I mean, we don't think about commercial fishing in West Tennessee, but in this day and age, that was a really important part of Reelfoot Lake.
And this had been going on for 80 something years. I mean, so
I bet.
everybody, the public at Reelfoot Lake was, able to fish and feed themselves, feed their families and, made a lot of money off. Or
Uh-huh.
not money even, but, resources
Yeah.
from Reelfoot Lake.
Yeah. It went
And
on for 96 years before this event
Mhm.
happened.
96 years
Uh-huh.
this was going on.
Yeah. Reelfoot was an important place, and it was close to the Mississippi River, which was the main, commerce channel from New Orleans all the way up, past St. Louis.
Mhm.
Um, so it was strategic
Right.
as well. Okay.
And on October the 19th of 1908, Quentin Rankin and R.C. Taylor are up at Walnut Log at Ward Hotel,
Uh-huh.
at the Ward's Hotel, and they are staying there, and I guess they are getting prepared to purchase Reelfoot Lake,
Pieces of it. Yeah.
pieces of it, and it would close down all the fishing
Yeah.
for the public.
Yeah.
Am I correct when I say that?
That's right. That's right. That's what a lot of people in the area were up in arms and upset about these two guys that were doing all of this deed and title work purchasing this land,
That's right.
which was Rankin and Taylor.
Rankin and Taylor.
Mhm.
They're up there and they're in the bed and they get drug out of the bed by these people called the um, Lake County Night Riders.
Mhm.
That's what they called themselves. And they were all there to take back, their rights to like they didn't want these people coming in and buying this and taking away their resources.
Well, I mean, we gotta say Rankin and Taylor's ultimate intent was that it would open up more ground for cotton to be farmed more widely
Right.
in that part of
Hmm.
Tennessee, and this caused such a stir
Mm,
that it's what led to the state of Tennessee owning Reelfoot Lake.
mm. Yeah, that's right. That is right.
So they were trying to buy land to convert for agricultural purposes, but everybody that lived there relied on the lake for fishing and other things.
Hmm.
and they didn't wanna give it up, and they didn't.
No.
So, Rankin and Taylor were dragged out of their hotel room
Mhm.
and taken to where?
Over to, like, the shore of where they had set up for them to be hanged.
Okay.
Right.
So they've got them both in custody.
Have them both.
They go over there to this site where, the Night Riders were tough and mean and,
Mad.
yeah, very mad
They were
about
angry.
this. And the Night Riders were farmed out to help people when they had problems like this. The Night Riders hated the carpetbaggers in the post-Civil
Mhm.
War era,
Mhm.
and, communities could call on them for their help,
Mhm.
and that's probably what led to all of this,
Yes.
or how they became fully involved, and a lot of them are from that area.
Mhm.
Okay. So they've got them over by the shore.
Mhm.
They're probably abusing them a little bit
I'm
and
sure they were.
getting them ready for their ultimate sentence.
Right. And R.C. Taylor jumps in front of Quentin Rankin,
Mhm.
and he says, "Kill me. If you're gonna kill somebody, kill me. I'm older than him. He has a lot of life left in him."
Uh-huh.
And they ignored him, and they first hung, um, Quentin Rankin in front of his friend R.C. Taylor, who tried to save him, and then they riddled his body with bullets.
Now, why do you think they did that to him first? Was he the most aggressive of the 2? I mean,
I think he was he was, I think he was the chief counsel for the land company,
yeah,
so I think that he was the more
they could make the bigger statement with killing him first and
right,
okay.
and doing it in front of his partner,
Yeah.
and Robert tried to stop this, RZ said, "This just let me go first. I got 20 years on him."
Yep.
And they wouldn't. And he was able to free himself away from these people and plunge himself down into the Reelfoot Lake
Yeah.
and swim underwater. Um, and they were shooting at him while he was doing this
Mhm.
until he got away.
Uh-huh.
And once he got to shore, and it took him a little while to feel safe, like he could come out. But there were people from Trenton that had came over there that were looking everywhere for him. They
Uh-huh.
had heard about this,
Uh,
and they were coming to find him.
yeah.
So, I mean, and these Midnight Riders, I mean, not Midnight Riders, thinking of the song.
Mhm.
These ni these Night Riders were relentless. I mean, they looked for him.
Uh-huh.
They chased him, and
Mhm.
this was a manhunt
Yep.
that, I mean, it was like they claimed this was like a miracle that he had supernatural powers at
Yeah.
this point,
To get away from them
to
like you did.
to get away from them like he did.
Yeah.
So, yes, and he gets back to Trenton, and, I mean, seems to me like he continues to resume his life pretty well.
Uh-huh.
Um, Goes on and continues with, his law firm, and he doesn't pass away until 1922,
Yeah.
5 years after his wife, Miss Maddie, passed away.
Uh-huh.
And Quentin Rankin was only maybe 38 years old.
That's right.
Yeah,
38.
and he left behind Miss Eliza,
Uh-huh.
and Miss Eliza did stay in Rosedale in the home. And in 1911, which was just 3 years after he was born, I mean, after Quentin passed away, um, Miss Eliza decided to remodel the home,
Mhm.
and it looks like it did then, now, I believe.
Yeah, she remodeled it and changed its appearance to more what it is today.
Right.
Yeah.
And she passed away very soon after that.
Yeah, she didn't get to enjoy it long.
No.
Mhm.
So, we do know, and it is, you think about that house and how much love was in that home for her and her husband. Her and Quentin's wedding was huge.
Oh,
And
yeah, it was a big deal.
oh, it was a huge deal. I mean, this big write up in the paper, and how these two are just amazing. And what we've learned about, um, what we've learned about Miss Eliza is that she was very well loved
Uh-huh.
by the community. And if a woman was invited to her home to a tea party, they surely did come, without any pushing at all. They all wanted to be Miss Eliza's friend.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that she's probably still there at Rosedale, keeping an eye on the tenants at the bed and breakfast. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
could
mean,
be.
she put a lot of love into that home.
Uh,
And yeah,
how many kids did they have?
I, I'm not exactly sure how many either one of them had, but they did have children.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not sure how many um, Miss Eliza Rankin had and Quentin, but they did have some children together. And I know that Robert Taylor and Miss Maddie
Uh-huh.
had children as well. And I believe they stayed in their home on College Street. There for a while it was turned into an apartment,
Uh-huh.
complex. So they're both very beautiful homes.
Yes.
Very beautiful homes. I imagine if it's anything like what it was then inside,
Uh-huh.
that the woodwork and all the flooring and all that is just absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Well, it's again part of the interesting past of Trenton and Gibson County. Um, but these night riders were actually brought to trial for this.
Yes, they were in 1909.
Yeah, and so, Taylor knew and probably participated in this.
Hmm.
And what was the outcome?
No one was charged. I
Was
mean, no one
Rankin
was
stealing?
convicted.
Nothing.
No, nothing. I mean, this went away, which is, you know, he was killed, and it may and R.C. Taylor was a victim of this,
And a witness to it.
a witness, and no, that shows you the difference in now and then,
Uh-huh.
because I mean, these people these two men considered themselves public servants
Yeah,
for the people,
and very much were.
and very much were
Mhm.
not victims. They didn't want to. They were part of um, this foundation of
Mhm.
Trenton, and you see now, the changes that have went down with, you know, that.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, if you go up to Oakland Cemetery, you'll see that both Captain Quentin Rankin and Colonel R.Z. Taylor are buried there.
Yes.
And, you know, not the oldest graves there, but way up there.
Hmm.
And for Halloween, I bet you could probably go meet them.
Oh, let me tell you something. Now, I've spent, and you have too, a lot of time in Oakland Cemetery.
Uh-huh.
I lived right down the street. I'm talking about just,
Yeah.
seconds from there. And my best friend lived right beside it. And there's a lot that goes down in Oakland Cemetery. There's a lot of historical things out there.
Mhm.
Like you can find out a lot of things even off the headstones. That they say they word things way differently. It's different.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just reading this book and the quotes that they use in this book about the people, places, and the time, it's almost hard to read.
Yes. Yes, it is. I mean, it's like, what?
It's overkill.
It's very theatrical.
Yeah.
But I feel, I mean, I can feel being in that time in
Uh-huh.
Trenton
Uh-huh.
and the way that it felt, that this was a growing community
Yeah.
and that the leaders were there to serve.
Yep.
And I feel like, that's what they really, that's what R.C. Taylor and Quentin Rankin were there to do
Mhm.
with their wives, Miss Meddy and Miss Eliza beside them, and, being that part of that movement.
Yeah.
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 Well, that takes me back to one of the original subjects that started all this. it was a very prominent and important person, not just to Trenton and Gibson County, but to the entire country.
Yes.
And her accomplishments within the country are honored still to this day.
Yes, they are.
And so it makes me want to, kind of finish this off by circling that back around to Miss Margaret Davies Hess.
Yes.
And you know, she was born in 1769 and passed away in 1860.
Wow.
What does that make her? 91 years old?
92, 91.
92? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So she's buried at Oakland Cemetery, and you
Mhm.
cannot miss the Hess grave.
No,
Um, Said to be the first woman to plead a case in the courts of the United States,
that's right.
not Tennessee, not Gibson County, the United States.
Mhm. Yes.
And that case was concerned with an entry of land.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Um, and the Women's Historical Law Society, is that right, of New York,
Yes.
honored this woman by naming their building or a room within their building after Margaret Davies Hess.
Yes.
So, eh, very, very interesting story to read about her. And this lady also was noted for having met three future presidents of the United States.
Do you remember which ones?
I'm going to say Abraham Lincoln was in one of the three.
No.
No?
No.
Oh, gosh. No, I don't know.
Washington,
Oh, my Lord. Really?
Polk, and Jefferson.
Okay. All right. And we all know that James Polk was from Tennessee.
Mhm. And she also, had 10 children.
Oh, my Lord. And this woman is buried at Oakland Cemetery in Trenton, Tennessee.
Yes. And I know her family,
Mm-hmm.
as well as R.C. Taylor's,
Mm-hmm.
were very much Masons in the building of the courthouse in Trenton.
Oh,
Right. Mhm.
well, I would venture to guess Miss Hess's family was there for the first one, too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So, wow. 1769 to 1860.
Yes,
10
and
kids.
she was married to a man by the name of William Hess from Easton, Pennsylvania,
Uh-huh.
and yeah, so they ended up in Trenton.
So, I mean, she traveled, the Eastern Seaboard.
Mhm,
We know she went to New York,
mhm,
Connecticut,
mhm.
Pennsylvania,
Yes,
and wound up in Trenton, Tennessee.
wound up in Trenton, Tennessee, and I'm telling you, to this day, if you go out to Oakland Cemetery, down there by Miss Peggy's, Miss Margaret, she went by Peggy.
Uh-huh.
I feel like I know her, but you can see her out there.
Yeah, she
Absolutely.
wanders around out
She
there.
does. She's big on that. This is my land.
Yeah,
She's going to stand her ground there.
yeah,
So don't go out there messing around. If you go
yeah,
out there, respect these headstones. These are the places that these people have laid to rest, and and we need to keep that just as beautiful
yeah.
as they deserve.
Yeah, Oakland Cemetery was picked because of its rolling hills, and its beauty.
Yes, and it is. I used to go out there and snow sled.
Mhm.
We did.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of things. I can remember going out there and walking with the babies,
Mhm.
in the strollers, in the wagons when
Now
they were little.
it's also a site of Civil War battle,
Hmm.
Battle of Trenton.
Yes.
This was an important site. This was the um, artillery for Nathan Bedford Forrest's
Hmm.
force, right?
Yes, that's
See, he
right.
had all of his artillery placed at Oakland Cemetery.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Hmm.
So blood was spilled right there.
Right there. Yeah, there's a lot of energy out there
Yeah.
in Trenton. I mean, before, way before we were talking about this, is this area was run by the Chickasaw Indians, right? Or
Chickasaw,
is that right?
Choctaw.
No, Chickasaw,
Yeah,
right?
Chickasaw. Yeah,
So
and the
they
Choctaw were there too.
right. So I mean, they ended up um, leaving this area
Uh-huh,
or being made to leave this area.
uh-huh.
Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, well, you know, that's true.
Uh-huh.
Um, and we talk about the hauntings around Trenton and growing up and stuff,
I tell you.
and, on the west side of Trenton, w there's a set of train tracks
Yes.
that go through Trenton, right?
Mhm.
And on the west side of Trenton, which is the old Dyersburg Highway,
Mhm.
that crossing right there, if you get on those tracks and start walking, you'll cross the Forked River, and eventually you'll turn west. But all of that area, which is behind what was, to me, the first Dairy Queen I ever knew about in Trenton, down there by the courthouse, all of that's the Indian Woods,
Yes.
and
Mhm.
there was a burial ground or some burial grounds back in there,
Mhm.
and it ran a pretty far distance down the Forked River.
Yes. Mhm.
I mean, if anybody knows where Sylvia Jatun lives right now, it was out in that area too,
Sure. Mhm.
you know, and went on up to Dyer County. I mean, between Gibson and Dyer County on that end of the county is a place called Mud Creek, and I swear that place is haunted from Indian burial
Oh, sure.
grounds. Yeah, I don't know what caused it or whatever, but something goes on out there.
There's areas all over Trenton. We went over the Lovers Lane case out, on the close to the Christmasville Road, Bradford Highway.
Yes,
Um, that area was also Indian burial ground, right?
there's a spot out there in that area that was in fact an Indian burial ground.
And you think about what happened there in 1952 and 1954.
Uh huh.
There was 4 deaths out there.
Uh huh.
They ended up shutting this off. Lovers Lane is no longer there, but you could go out to you know, th when we were younger, there was more access,
Yeah.
and, people would see Kathleen McCage
Uh huh.
from Lovers Lane. She's out there wandering.
Looking for something,
No, they found her panties. Really.
but she's looking for it.
Absolutely she is, and you can't take this woman's panties.
No.
Give her dignity back.
Right.
Yes. So, I mean,
Yeah, during the
and that's
investigation, they found those under a bridge
the and
on
that's
Lover's Lane.
and that's the area that people have seen Miss Kathleen wandering.
Yeah, and pretty well in that Y-shaped area that is, um, oh, what's the name of that road that goes back to Lake Hayes?
Is that Christmasville?
Christmasville Road,
Yeah.
yeah. So that area kind of between the bypass and Christmasville Road, that Y,
Mhm.
and back to the Bradford Highway is the area we're talking about.
Right.
And there's a lot of stories over the years of a lot of haunted stuff in that area.
In that area, yes. I mean, wouldn't it be though?
Sure.
There's tragic things that happen there, and I mean, sure, you think Halloween's coming up,
Well,
and this is the time when those souls come back
yeah.
here. So I think everybody in Trenton should keep their eyes open for R.C. Taylor, Quentin Rankin, and Miss Meddy,
Don't forget about Miss Hess.
Miss Hess,
Mhm.
and Miss Eliza,
Mhm.
and Miss Kathleen McCage, and R.H. Phelan.
Yep.
These are all people that were very, well known in this town. We don't want to forget about them.
Yep.
These were the founders, and these were the history. This is the history
Yeah.
as we know it anyway.
Right.
Best we can tell this history.
Right. Well, so again, I want to say to anybody who is in the forum of, if you grew up in Trenton or that knew Uncle Frederick and knows about these families and the origins of these families in Trenton, please leave a comment. Please
Yes.
like, share this video and leave a comment. Talk to us about it.
Hmm.
I think there's going to be some more info that we do again.
Sure.
So,
Yeah. There's more. Oh,
and,
there's more.
and if you don't have a copy of this, I'm sure the library has a couple of copies in Trenton, and it's Gibson County past and present. Again, that's Culp and Ross.
Huh?
Go thumb through this book and you'll kind of see some of the stuff that we have talked about and will talk about, and share this information.
Yeah.
All right. Sharon, that was fun. That was fun. It was a different take on things.
Yes. We had a good time.
Yeah. And, I hope everybody enjoys it. And
Yes.
again, we appreciate you. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe and, the notifications bell, but most importantly, share these videos, keep the conversation going, and we look forward to seeing you again on the next one.
Yeah, happy Halloween, y'all. Be safe.
All right, everybody.
Bye.